Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the Paddock podcast. I'm joined as always by Ronaldo Brown. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I'm very good, thank you. And Ryan Opera is here as well. Up the RH.
Got the RH in the chat already.
Yeah, we've got loads
Thanks
to talk about today. Loads to get into. We're starting to see the Ineos plan at work. I think as the days go by, as certain transfers get closer, as we're starting to see things like Ruud Van Nistelrooy potentially joining the coaching staff, as we start to see the plans for the new Carrington come into place, the money being spent there, I think we are starting to see what Ineos's plan is. And I think there's a couple of particular things that have happened over the weekend and even today that I really want to get into and I want to talk about as well. Firstly, I want to talk about the targets that United are going for. And this is one thing we've spoken about a little bit already. Like I said, we'll get into Van Nistelrooy. We'll get into this FFP shenanigans that Everton, Chelsea and Villa are getting into as well. But the first thing we'll talk about is United signing players and who they are looking at signing. Joshua Zirkzee has been mentioned. Leny Yoro has been mentioned. Branthwaite's been mentioned. Elise's been mentioned. Many more have been mentioned. The one thing that almost all of them have got in common, almost to a man, they're under 26 years old. Almost every single one of them is under 26 years old. And that is obviously what you need to do when you're rebuilding. But I think that gone are the days where United are going to be making signings like Casemiro, like Igalo, like Cristiano Ronaldo, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, players like that. I think we are looking at a new era at Man United where, certainly for the next couple of years while we're getting back to the top, it is youngsters coming in. I've got some stats on this firstly, but just your thoughts on that initially, Ronaldo. Do you agree with that? Does that seem to be the way that Ineos are looking?
I've always agreed with that, and I think Ineos have came in and they've made it a point of emphasis of going after young, hungry, ambitious people with quite high ceilings. Obviously, you've mentioned Elise, Branthwaite, Leny Yoro. We've even got been linked to Désiré Doué.
You're a big fan of his, aren't you?
Big fan of his as well. And I think there's a lot of positives that you can get from signing players like this with obvious talent, because these players that we're linked to, they're not just project signings in terms of they come in and you're hoping that they're good eventually. A lot of these young players that United have been linked to are players that are really, really good now already. Yeah. And it's about how scary it is that they could get to. Because I did tweet, I said, Désiré Doué and Leny Yoro, 18, 19-year-olds, that can actually come into this current Manchester United side and challenge for a starting place. Just
on Désiré Doué before we move on, because obviously people may have heard of him, people may not have heard of him. I think Leny Yoro, the interest in United has been a lot more established, so more people will have done their own research, looked into him. Désiré Doué is exceptional dribbler on the ball. Tell me more about what he's like as a player in case people aren't sure who he is or what he is.
This sometimes just right and be, but I feel like it is a positive. He's a very versatile player. He can play right wing, he can play as an 8, he's even played deeper. He's played as a 10, but I think his best performances have come as a left winger as well. But he's almost got that. He's almost the profile of player he is. It's Sancho-ish in terms of he's very good at combining with players rather than having that long burst of pace. But he's got a lot more grit and aggression to his game, and I think he's one of them where he can come in and he can almost operate on either side, right wing or left wing. But he's also got the tools, the ability to play in a 10 as well. I know you've got Mason Mount, you've got Bruno Fernandes there, but a player that is that talented with that wide range of attributes that it does have, and only being 18, just turning 19, he can be moulded into whatever position he wants really, and he's pretty much shown flashes of having an incredibly high ceiling, and I'm a big fan of his. Someone I've actually kind of identified watching a couple of games and getting on a wee scout back in October, I think, and I was kind of singing his praises since then, and then I was not surprised that we've been linked to him, because I thought he'd always get into the scope of the big clubs eventually.
So you obviously you mentioned those players. I'll get to you in a minute, right? Because I want to ask you in particular about your sort of coaching experience of players around this age. But you mentioned a couple of names there. You said that you see this as the new strategy, that this is what we need to be doing, players, not necessarily these exact guys, but players of this age, of this profile?
Because I think for a club like Manchester United, having the option and the ability to sign players under 26, even under 23 even, that can come in and start for you straight away and elevate your squad. It's a market opportunity that's too big to pass up on, I feel like, because with young players that are that talented, even if it doesn't work out for them, they've still got a little bit of resale value.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's important.
I think that's massively important. I'm going to get to that in a minute. I've got some really good stats on that. But Ryan, obviously you coach a lot of young players, semi-professional, professional. Obviously you've mentioned before Diogo Dalot, Fred, Bruno Fernandes. You've coached in the past other academy players as well. Some you can mention, some you can't. But do you see a difference in, a player, yourself obviously played Football League, players who are 28, 29, 30 and above, and players who are 17, 18, 19, 20 in terms of desire and wanting to prove themselves and being able, being willing to put their body and their time on the line compared to those older players? Do you see a difference there?
I think it's a great question, because I think as a younger, like Ronnie said there, coming into a new environment, you sort of got to impress. You've got to come in and set your stall. You might be in another environment where you hit the big fish, but once you come into a club like Manchester United, you're in a big fishbowl, so you've got to establish yourself the right way. There's some big players around you that'll help you and guide you, but at the end of the day, you've got to go in there and make your stamp and impress people and get yourself into the starting lineup. To answer you to your question, Joe, about the young players, it's one of them. Once you're in the team, we've seen it, time and time again. I'll use Rashford for example. Once they start to get comfy, then it comes a bit of a problem. Whereas these young players that are coming in have got a point to prove. It's the best thing for them, because they're always looking over the shoulder. New people are coming in, but it should be like that for the old lads. Everyone should be fighting for the shirt and stuff like that. Hopefully it'll all change with what's going on behind the scenes and stuff. Just to add to a point what Ronnie said there as well, I think I'm going to be not negative, but the players that Ronnie said, it'll be absolutely fantastic to bring in, but in the past we've brought in these players and we've not developed them the way that we should do. But hopefully now, with the changes that are coming in and stuff like that, we've got the footballing people what we'll go on to coming in and stuff like that. Hopefully we can really develop them and take them to that next level, because
I agree with that, because that's definitely something that if you're an agent and one of your client is 21, 22, 23, even 24, even younger than that, and Manchester United are coming in for you, it's a huge club and a huge opportunity, and it's not one that any agent and player is really going to scoff at. But you might have concerns and a few reservations about how United have developed players 100%. That have been around that age that they've signed, because United have only really had one true success story in the transfer window in the last 10 years, and that's Bruno Fernandes. And as an agent, you will be looking at that thinking, as great as it would be for my client 100%. To play for Manchester United, how could they affect my client's career going forward? Because they haven't shown the ability to progress, develop players, and that goes for even a lot of the academy graduates. Sometimes there's always seems to be a little bit of an issue with that. So
I think another thing that's worth mentioning with the young players is, and Laura Whitwell mentioned it, and you see it on the pitch. It's not just United and Casemiro and Varane, who I'm going to talk about, but there were reports that they didn't buy into Ten Hag's tactics particularly, because they favoured the sort of Ancelotti model of a little bit more freedom on the pitch, not quite as positional, not quite as detailed and sort of mathematical almost. And I feel like a young player is far less likely to do that. Someone who hasn't already won trophies using a certain style has got far less weight to what they say when they say, actually, I don't like what you're doing here.
Yeah, buy into the system.
Well, they're more likely to buy in because they haven't seen success using another method elsewhere. And I think that's a big thing as well. I've got some stats here on the amount of players United have bought or who have brought in who were over the age of 28 when we brought them in, right? Compared to other teams, around United. So United have brought in 8 outfield players over the age of 28 since 2020. So this isn't even last decade, this is last 4 years. Ighalo's 30, Cavani 33, Varane 28, Ronaldo 35, Casemiro 31, although I don't think he was 31 when we brought him in, Weghorst 30, Eriksen 30, and Johnny Evans 35. That's 8 different players who were over the age of 28 when we brought them in. In the same period, City brought in one player over the age of 28, and that was Kovacic, who was brought in, to bit of technicality in midfield, not to start.
And he was 29.
He was 29 when they brought him in.
Yeah.
Liverpool have brought in 2. One was Thiago, and one was Endo, and Arsenal have brought in 4. David Luiz, who was 34, but again that was very much a stopgap. Willian, the same thing. Trossard, 28. Jorginho, 32. But United have done double the amount of older players as Arsenal, 8 times more than City, and 4 times more than Liverpool.
Yeah.
Like the other top teams, especially Arsenal, I think are a good example because they are trying to improve. They're trying to build for the future, and you don't do that by stocking your team full of older players. Because they need to win now, otherwise they're never going to win.
I think that's what it's been as well. Like, we've not really had a plan in place on the pitch as well as off it. Like, City have got a style and a philosophy on the pitch, but they've got the people, not even just City, like, Arsenal. Arteta's a young, hungry manager. He's probably imprinted what he's seen at Man City or gone to Arsenal and stuff. I feel like we've just bought for the now as a short fix rather than a long-term sort of plan and an investment. And like you said, you bring in younger players and you home them and develop them, then they'll be there for years. We've seen it with Ronaldo. We had him for years, and then he went on to do what he done. But hopefully we can get back to that.
Yeah, the old players things. It's not a great strategy because it kind of makes you feel like it'll be 2 steps forward, 3 steps back almost, because you might have a window where you're signing 2, 3 over 28 players, and then you're gonna have to end up replacing them in a few years anyway, and you don't really have much longevity to them. So it's not. Whereas if you have younger players that are around for longer, that you don't have to replace them, it means that you can strengthen better in like successive windows.
I think Diogo Dalot is a perfect example of that. We signed him. He was 19. I think it was Jose that signed him, wasn't it? In like 2018, 2019, maybe even before that. He was not first choice at Man United right back until this season. It was the first time where you would say he's definitely first choice. 5 years it's taken him. Yeah. But if that's a 28-year-old, there ain't no 5 years for you to sort of work it out. Wan-Bissaka has his ups and downs. I know obviously a 28-year-old should be coming in straight away to start. I get the difference. But with a younger player, if you'd have sold Dalot 2 years ago, he would be worth what, 10 million quid? 8 million quid?
Now he's what?
60, 70? Oh, not that we're trying to sell him, but
30, 40.
Okay.
And I'm a Dalot guy.
Yeah, okay. 30 or 40, yeah, fair enough. But either way, not that we're trying to sell him, but you've got a player there, like you said, that, in 4 or 5 years, it didn't quite work out for the first 2 or 3. All of a sudden, it's starting to work out, and he's still got most of his 20s ahead of him. That's a huge difference to buying of someone who's 28. If it doesn't work out straight away, that's it. The value goes down. You don't get anything for them. The wage is usually higher because they've already had 2 or 3 contracts at their previous club or previous clubs. You have to give them more money, and if they don't hit the ground running and they don't work out, then there's nothing you can do about it. Like, I just think, some of the players on the list there, Casemiro was fantastic that first season, but already he's only been here 2 years, and we need to get rid of him.
It's getting him on the pitch, though, with the older lads as well. Like, everyone talks about, playing and ability and experience, but it's getting him on the pitch. They're getting older, and obviously the bodies. Like, we look at Casemiro and Varane. Like, when they're on the pitch, like in particular Varane, when he's on the pitch and he's in form, he is vital for us, but he just can't get him on the pitch because he's older and his body's shutting down. He's played at the highest level. With young players, you can trust them a lot more, and the load on the legs, you can push them a little bit more as well.
You've seen that with Garnacho starting so many successive games as well. There's always a worry about burnout, but they usually are, but you are more capable of doing that when you are younger. But I've been saying for a while now in the transfer market that United need to focus on like the type of signings that might not be bougie or flashy or Galactico, but they need to be more clever signings that raise the flooring of the team, because it's like it's the whole cliche of you're only as good as your weakest link. I think United usually go into transfer windows and they'll make 2 big signings, maybe one's over 28, like a shiny new toy thing, and think that's going to elevate the team, whereas you've still got players there that are probably not good enough that are going to drag that down, where I think United need to kind of filter out a lot of the deadwood and then still buy players that might not be flashy but they're functional, and they kind of raise the technical, physical flow in the team. And then later on, when you've got a good base,
And then add
Make
the
add the big signings.
Players in. Well, we're going to get into some of those players and go through some of the players United have been linked with. Look at what kind of player they are, and you know, like you said, whether they can improve Manchester United in just a minute. But before that, this show is brought to you by Manscaped, and they have brought out the latest and greatest in male below the waist grooming. They just have. They're the market leader for a reason. There's 8 million other men that trust them for a reason, and that reason is the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, featuring the brand new dual-headed, 2 different bladed Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. You've got the normal trimmer to get rid of all the weeds, knock down that brush, that machete that you're sort of going into the jungle with. That's the first head. Then you've got the foil head to finish things off. Take it right down to the very nub with Manscaped. And using Devils20 as a code at checkout, you can get 20% off and free shipping. But it's not just the lawnmower trimmer. There's all sorts in the Performance Package 5.0. You've got the Weed Whacker 2.0, which is the ear and nose hair trimmer, which unfortunately I have to use more than I like to admit. There's also the Performance Boxer briefs as well. There's also the lotions, the tonics. You've got the anti-chafe ball deodorant. You've got the crop soother, which is the lotion. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's putting deodorant on their armpits, but have you ever tried putting normal deodorant down there? No. My God, it stings. Not with Manscaped. They know exactly what they're doing. You also get the Boxers 2.0 and the Shed travel bag to carry everything around in, so you can take it under your arm like you're getting off the team bus. Do you know what I mean? You see, I don't even know who it is, Casemiro getting off the bus. Well, that can be you now, but instead in there, you've got your genitals, basically. You've got your genitals on a lead. You're doing what you want with them. It's absolutely fantastic. And like I said, use the code Devils20 at checkout to get 20% off and free shipping. Thank you to Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. Let's talk about
up the Manscaped.
Yeah, up the Manscaped.
Up the RH.
Some promising youngsters. First up, Leny Yoro is one that's been mentioned before. We spoke about him on the channel a few times. Ronaldo, I'm going to come to you because I know you're a big fan of his. What do you like about him? Do you think he's right for United? There's links with Real Madrid as well. He's 18 years old. He's in the Olympic squad for France this summer. He's played a lot of games for Lille last year. I think the most minutes of any outfielder in the squad. So he's not someone who's a bit part player. He's 18 and he's starting every single week for him.
Exactly. Being 18 and starting for a side as good as Lille, and having the most minutes out of all outfielders in the squad is a testament to how good he is, and also a testament to his durability as well, is what we literally just mentioned about players that are a little bit younger. But if you look at Leny Yoro, he's got pretty much everything that you do want in a modern centre half. I feel like he still has to fill out a little bit. He's a bit on the slender side of things, but you won't really see it in the way that he does play. And the scary thing about centre halves, especially when they're that good at that younger age, is that it's a position that's so much about like moxie and awareness and kind of experience. It does help, which is why you see a lot of elite centre halves get better as they get older. It's one of the few positions that usually does happen. That goalkeeper as well. So for Leny Yoro, it's more about how scary his potential is as well. Because if you see him, he's still not filled out. He's got a lot of development to go still, and he's got raw aspects to his game, as you'll quite often get with 18-year-olds. But he has everything. He's quick, he's strong, he's good in the air as well. But for someone as tall and kind of slender as he is, he's really, really good on the ball too. So pretty much everything that you want from a modern day centre half. Yeah,
Real Madrid are up for it as well, aren't they? Which is always a bit of a concern.
I think for me on him, I think the way Ten Hag wants to play is so reliant on football in centre halves. Like we see it when Martinez plays, breaking the lines and then passing and stuff. I think he's a prime example on the ball. He's calm, he's composed, and he could really, fit into what Ten Hag wants to do. Alongside the only thing with playing him and Martinez is, like Ronnie said, a physical element. Obviously, Martinez alongside a Varane who's a big presence and stuff like that. So maybe it's something that we look at. But is it him or is it Branthwaite as well?
Well, that's the other one. We'll have a look at him as well, because according to The Athletic, Leny Yoro has said to Real Madrid that he's up for joining them. The only issue seems to be whether they're willing to pay the fee for him now, or they want him to run down his contract. He's only got a year left. Very Real Madrid, that, innit? It comes in a year. So when we don't have to pay 60 million, we'll give you 30 million as a sign-on fee.
Smart. There's no way of competing You can't compete with Real Madrid in the transfer.
Especially with one of the few, not weak, but if you're an 18-year-old and you're a central midfielder or a left winger, you might not go there because you think, I'm not getting ahead of Vinicius and Mbappe or, Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Cruz,
They still go there.
You still go there,
definitely.
Yeah.
But at centre-back is an area where they're a little bit thin, actually.
100%,
and Nacho looks like he might be going to Saudi Arabia. He can be starting for them in a year or two, let alone, waiting for Vinicius Junior to retire. But yeah, it might be a tricky one. Jared Branthwaite, another one, 21 years old, again fitting in this mould of younger players, higher ceiling, and a bit of a resale value as well, should things not work out. We're going to talk after this about what Everton are doing, but as it stands, Everton need to raise some funds. Now, they supposedly want 70 million for Branthwaite. It looks like United are going to struggle to make that kind of money. They've said that we don't want to. We've put initial bid of around 35 million, rising to about 43 million. What are your thoughts on him, Ronaldo? Because I know Steve's not hugely keen. I've seen mixed reviews. One thing he definitely is quick, he's big, he's strong, he's good in the air. Maybe some question marks around his ball playing, but I think he did a bit of that for PSV, didn't he, under Ruud Van Nistelrooy, who we'll be coming to in just a minute as well.
Yeah, he weren't perfect last year. He showed a lot of qualities. I know he had a tough game against Alexander Isak. He struggled against him at St James's Park. I know he struggled against Haaland, which a lot of centre halves do when they played at Etihad. Obviously, people saw how he got nutmegged when Cole Palmer scored, which it can happen when you are a defender at the highest level. Sometimes it's the same way they say it in basketball, like great offense beats great defense 99% of the time. Sometimes you just got to take your hat off, and sometimes these forwards can be unplayable on a day. But if I'm talking about Branthwaite and whether he's worth 70 million, I don't personally think so.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? I think at most, right, at the very, very most, he's a 50 million pound centre half, and that's just because of the current market, where I think for a player that's played as many games as he has in the Premier League, showed promise. Obviously, he's 6'5", he's big, he's got the stature, he's left-footed. Left-footed centre halves are always a little bit of a luxury when it comes to transfers as well. They're a bit more needed because they're a little bit rarer as well. So I think that does help him as well. But I wouldn't pay any more than 50 million for him. I don't see him as someone that comes in and he's transformative, but I do see him as a signing that if you got him for a reasonable price, he could be a steady, solid mainstay at Manchester United. He's definitely good enough, but for the price that they're looking for, personally, I don't think he's worth that much.
What do you make of him? Have you seen much of him?
I think I agree with Ronnie. I think 50 million is probably the ceiling, in my opinion. He has had a great season for Everton. Obviously, he's got personal accolades. Obviously, he was named in the initial England squad. I think that his potential could be very, very good. I feel like 70 million's too much. 50 million, if you get him, and again, if you get him and nurture him and develop him, it could be a great investment. But for that price, I don't feel like it would be something that I would look to do anyway.
We need a limit that we stick to, I think, and all the reports are that we're going to do that. I just want to move on because I want to move on to the next story.
A lot of people are criticising him about because whether he's actually that good on the ball, etc. With his statistics, obviously he's playing at Everton that don't play that way. It's different styles.
Sean Dyche isn't telling you to bring the ball out as a centre back.
He's shown the ability to do that when he played at PSV as well. So it's like.
Yeah, and it depends who your coach is. And if you've got a good coach, you can learn something from that coach. Yeah. You're not just the player you arrive in and you're going to progress the exact same way no matter who manages you. Your coaches make a difference. Like, do you think Akanji would have been playing at the level he's played at for the last 2 years if he wasn't in that system with City and with Pep? He was a rotational piece for a Dortmund side that were struggling to get top four, and then all of a sudden he starts every single week for the best team in the world. Things change depending on managers and systems. So
that's the smart signings that these clubs make.
Exactly, it is. Milos Kerkez, another one, 20-year-old left back, Hungarian, playing in the Euros for Hungary. I mean, Hungary haven't looked very good, have they? I know they got a late winner last night against Scotland. I don't think we've seen the best of him in the Euros games, but in the same way you shouldn't sign a player based on Euros, you probably should not sign him based on the Euros either.
Yeah, I agree.
Have you seen much of him, Ronaldo, 20-year-old?
I think one of his best games last season was against us.
Yeah, it was good.
I thought he was really, really good at when he plays at the Vitality. I feel he's probably their best player. He looks very promising.
Yeah.
The only thing with Kerkez, from what we're seeing, is he's okay defensively, but I think a lot of his talents is going forward.
Yeah.
He almost feels a bit like, because he even moved up to left wing when they had an injury as well, and that seems to be where he's better. I personally, I know sometimes his height and stature isn't that necessary at fullback, but I feel like if he was a few inches taller, I would have been more, because he is on the shorter side of things, and I think because you have Martinez in there, I know he's kind of outdid the odds in terms of his stature. He's not
about 5'10", by the way. Okay.
Yeah, he's not noticeable when he plays. But I think when you had Luke Shaw as like a left back and Martinez inside him, and then you've got like Varane, and then you've got Dalot Wan-Bissaka, they're all relatively tall defenders, and I think football's almost moving towards an era now where you're seeing sometimes 4 centre-halves being played across the back.
But not sometimes.
Do you know what I mean?
City and Arsenal do it most weeks. They'll have like Ake or Akanji at left back, or Ake at left back, Akanji and Diaz, and then Kyle Walker, who's not a centre back, admittedly, but he's tall and he's quick and he's strong. Then Arsenal will be playing like Tomiyasu, Saliba, Ben White, and Gabriel, like literally 4 centre backs. They did that against United, so that is a bit of more of a thing these days, and especially with the high lines. People like to be able to win those out balls, those high balls that are coming out when teams are clearing it. And you've got centre backs in there.
He is good.
Do that.
No, he is good. He is good though. And
I like him.
I do like him. He's very bright. He played with a lot of hunger. I think I haven't watched him much. The only time I have watched him was when he played against us, and he played really well.
He's got that sort of like quite sort of muscular body style though, and he's quite robust. Like, even though he's, like I said, he's not that short. I know he's not tall, but he's got quite a sort of low centre of gravity. Kind of wide-necked kind of player, so maybe he'll overcome some of that. I just
want United to become more of a physical team. I think one of the biggest issues for United in the last couple of years, especially last season, was just, I think we just seem so physically inferior to a lot of teams that we played.
Through the squad I think we lack athletes. Like, Martinez is a fantastic defender. He's not an athlete. No. He hasn't got that. Luke Shaw, the same. Dalot, he's quicker than people think. Maybe he's a bit more that way, but still, he's not a powerhouse, is he? Casemiro, not got the pace to do that. Mainu isn't that kind of guy. Rashford is undoubtedly like that, but he's not strong, but he's quick as Højlund is probably one of the better athletes in the squad. But you look through the centre of the team, Varane's sort of on his last legs. Martinez isn't that kind of guy. You need players who can actually like push people out the way, who are quick, who are strong. I want a Theo Hernandez type of left back. You know, like a big 6'1" unit. Yeah, that's good. Well, speaking. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, no. Just a quick point on the left back position. If you're the manager, and we've seen it, we can't really rely on Luke Shaw in terms of his fitness going back to that. So I think that's an area where Wan-Bissaka or Diogo was playing in there. I think we need an out and out natural. We're seeing it in the England squad at the moment. When you're playing a right-footed player left back, the dynamic changes. So I feel like if Shaw's not available, we need to have someone there to be for that outlet, as well as the stuff going forward, as well as defensively. But I feel like we do need to bring another left back in. Sorry, but that's
I agree. Looking at someone who absolutely is a physical specimen is Joshua Zirkzee. 6'4", 6'3", 6'5", depending on what reports you read. Yeah. Regardless, he's big, he's quick. He's got some weaknesses I think for me, he lacks output. He's a little bit Anthony Ajax numbers, 11 goals, 3 assists, or whatever it is. I think in the league, he's not a sort of absolute goal getter. He's not amazing in terms of finding other people in the final third, but he's got a lot of good attributes. He dribbles well, he brings the ball up well. He's, like I said, he's quick, he's very tall, very big, provides a physical presence that could translate to the Premier League well. What do you make of him, Ronaldo?
Zirkzee, I disagree with what you said in terms of he doesn't find people particularly well. Okay. I know his assist numbers are just decent, but people may actually argue that Zirkzee actually suits our personnel as a striker more than Højlund does. Like, Zirkzee's very much that kind of drops in, almost like plays as a 9.5. Likes to receive on a turn, likes to link up with people. He's not really the in behind type of striker. He's almost a Martial mould, where he's like a focal point up front, and his best attribute and best ability and his play style is more bringing other people into play and finding people, and that's how he played at Bologna. And I think when you've got the likes of Garnacho and you've got Rashford and you've got these quick players, even if he plays alongside Højlund, if he could do that, I think Zirkzee is actually a very, very good, like, stylistic fit for the players that we do have. So for 34 million, that's one of the signings I thought would be a really clever coup, because obviously he's only 23 as well, and he's a big unit.
Yeah, he is.
But he doesn't actually play that way. He's more.
No.
More like a.
He's not a heavy target man type. He likes to have the ball at his feet.
More like Martial.
No, I like that. And obviously with Martial going, I think that might be, not like for like, but very, very similar in terms of, output and stuff. Output in terms of bringing people in and playing rather than out and out goal scoring. Like Ronnie said there, for me, Højlund, they played him as a lone striker, and it's very lonely up there, and he's feeding off scraps. Maybe he needs someone like that to play off like a strike partner, because, like, we're seeing it where he's feeding off scraps and relying on Garnacho to bring the goals and stuff like that. We need people to step up with the goals as well as just usual lads.
Yeah, we do.
I feel like it's very important now to have a strike duo in terms of Zirkzee and Højlund. It's just two very different players, two different dynamics, and I think that will provide a whole different element to United going forward.
I feel as though they share enough qualities there where it's not going to be like we have to play a completely different way when one comes on.
I think it'll complement each other though.
But yeah, I don't think.
I think it'll complement. I think they'll complement each other quite well in terms of the styles and stuff.
And Zirkzee can play on the left as well, can't he? I think.
Yeah, he can, but I think his best position is up front or dropping off into the 10.
Okay. Let's move on a little bit then, because we spoke about Jared Branthwaite before, and I purposefully said, at the minute, Everton need to sell players. Now, we need to get into this. There is this absolutely, from what the outside looking in, looks like an absolute mad little love rectangle going on between four teams who very much need to start selling players for FFP reasons, who all of a sudden are selling each other these unheard of academy players, some of which have played 100 minutes as professional footballers, for fees in the region of £20 million each.
Bizarre.
So here's what's going on, right? So Chelsea are selling, look to be, these haven't all gone through yet, look to be selling Maatsen to Villa. Chelsea are buying Kellerman from Villa. I think they're selling him for 20 million. They're buying Kellerman from Villa for 20 million pounds. He's played less than 150 minutes of professional football, this guy that they're spending 20 million quid on. Villa are buying Lewis Dobbin from Everton, and Everton are buying Tim Bunham, sorry, I'm getting that name wrong, for £9 million. Newcastle are doing some similar deals with Everton for Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Yakuba Minter. Basically, these teams, it looks like, and be careful here, because obviously we don't want to accuse people of breaking rules on purpose.
Allegedly.
It seems very convenient that these teams all need a bit of money and all of a sudden are paying massively inflated fees for these players that no one has ever heard of. When you consider some of these signings would be like United's 6th best sale of all time. I think people like Zidane Iqbal, who played minutes for Man United, are being sold for £1 million.
It's just not right, is it?
It's obviously not right.
It's not right. It's quite clever. I think it's one of them where there's on the books it will look like they've signed Maatsen for 37.5 million, but really it's like we'd give you more than that. So that's why we're going to pay. We'll buy this youngster off you for 20 million to kind of get around it.
And also, what teams can do is, and I'm not saying they're doing this again, we have to be careful just in case anyone wants to come after us. What you can do is, when you sell a player, you can put on this year's books, we've made £20 million for that player. Even if they pay you over 5 years, you can say the sale was 20 million, it's going to be over 5 years, but that 20 million goes on the books now. When I buy a player for 20 million quid, we can amortise that 20 million and pay it over 5 years, so that this year we're only actually paying 4 million. So basically that's £16 million profit on a transfer that you've made, where you basically swap in two players, and yet for the same fee, and yet you've made 16 million profit on that, as far as this year's books are concerned.
Like Ronnie said, it's quite clever really, and if you can get away with it, I'm not saying it is wrong off the record, not coming after the RH, but if they can do it, they'll do it, don't they?
I'm not even that massively
Does it not bother you?
Condemning it, not really. I think it's business, finance, economics. I think in all walks of that business, people find loopholes. I think it's just the nature of it, and I think the introduction of obviously FFP and then is it PSR?
Yeah.
Is that what it's, and I feel some clubs feel like it's kind of hampered their ability to grow, and then is it people are arguing it's kind of keeping their cartel where it's like with United and the revenue that they earn, that it's almost like United, Arsenal and Liverpool etc. are allowed to spend however much they want to, and the small clubs can never catch up because of the FFP.
But to me, part of me thinks that's just absolute shit. Like, I'm not saying that's but part of me thinks like that's like a new artist or a singer that's been doing, you know, pubs and clubs for 20 years going, it's not fair that Taylor Swift sells at Old Trafford and I don't. Like, she sells more tickets than you. She sells more records than you. But part of that is because her success has been built over years and years and years. And maybe she's better than you, which got her there in the first place. Then she's maintained that.
It's like
people have a bit of bad luck.
Right.
But United were better than City. And, I mean, Villa have been were great a long time ago. But have been better for longer than most of these teams. That's why we can make more money year in, year out. We have more fans, so we can sell more shirts. The TV revenue, more people watch us, so we make more money.
That's the correct argument. It's like these clubs like United, Arsenal, Liverpool, they've built their way there over the course of decades. Do you know what I mean?
We didn't do it by having an owner that was worth £100 billion come in and give us everything. Like, unfortunately, it takes a long time to be a successful football team. It's not easy. It isn't just 4 transfer windows and all of a sudden you're winning things. I mean, I know before the FFP rules came in, Chelsea proved that wrong, City proved that wrong. You can do it. You can kickstart the engine and just go to the top of the table if you've got unlimited wealth to spend. But that's not sport, is it?
It's not day-to-day thing. Like you said there about the singing stuff, even in work. Like, it's not the way it's done, is it? Like, obviously, you got to graft to the top and stuff like that. But
and like, what are we doing here? This isn't like the government being, it's not like, you know, the welfare state where people need to be looked after. This is elite level sport. The whole point is competition. You versus us. We win, we go above. We win, we go above. It's not, we've been better than you for 50 years and all of a sudden you get a new owner comes in and negates all of that. What was the fucking point in United winning 13 league titles under Sir Alex Ferguson, in winning the European Cup in 1968, if you can come in with an owner that knows nothing about your club at all, spends a bit of pocket change and you're above United now? What's the point in sport if you can just absolutely diminish that gap overnight because you've got an owner with loads of money? The whole fucking thing is ruined. I get it shouldn't be impossible. Teams should be able to spend a bit of money, have an owner that comes in, invest a bit of their money. I get that. But this whole idea that it's not fair because we're not as good as you. You're not as good as United. You're not as good as City, Liverpool, Arsenal, because they've done it for a fucking 100 years. It took them a while to get there as well. It pisses me off, like, anyone should be able to win the league in 2 years. Of course you shouldn't. Why would we even watch if that was what the sport was?
Nah, bang on. That's why the Geordies are fuming. Do you know what I mean? Because they came in, they got the new owners and they thought they were going to be able to fast track their way to a title, and obviously it's hampered them where they have to sell players now. But like you've said, United, Liverpool and Arsenal built the legacy and whatever and the club that they are for years and years and years and decades of graft. And obviously I think some clubs are a little bit pissed off that they can't fast track their way into that mix because of the financial rules. And hilariously, I kind of thought about it the other day. I was like, what would football be like if there just wasn't none? Like, if they just abolished, like almost you can abolish the salary cap in the American sports, if they just abolished FFP and PSR and every club could just spend whatever they wanted.
Well, all of a sudden, the Lakers and the Celtics and you know, maybe the Heat would be by far the best teams in basketball. Milwaukee would have no chance. Like, Charlotte Hornets would have no chance. Like, I know they don't have a huge chance now, but Milwaukee won it 3 years ago. That wouldn't happen if it was just you can spend what you earn. The Lakers and the Celtics make fucking way more than everyone else.
I think the way that it is in American sports is the parity is much easier to obtain because they do have the salary cap, whereas the salary cap,
the whole league system is different. The salary cap, they have to have a competitive league.
The draft thing where if you're the worst team, your draft pick's higher so that you can get the best talents coming out of college.
Yeah,
so
they have to have that league sort of artificially, the gap closed artificially to a certain extent because you can't get relegated. So you would have the fans of one team, literally your team loses every single week, every single game, no matter what, and you just stuck. getting your head kicked in the corner for 30 years on end. There's no point in that either.
No,
At least with relegation, teams get to see their team go down, regroup, win 40 games, come back up. Like, you know, it's a whole different thing.
I think barely any teams really stay shit forever in the American sports. I mean, things are quite cyclical there, but it's a completely different system. Whereas in football, I think there's quite a lot of a less parity if you and that's just the way it is. I think that's basically the argument that a lot of these clubs are having, because it's like outside of United, outside of the top six really. Who's going to win the Premier League outside of that in the next 20 years? Probably not.
That.
The Leicester story won't happen again.
You know what I mean?
No, and it probably won't happen again in our
Yeah.
lifetime. It's fair enough that teams, there should be a path to be successful and to have sustained success as a team. You know, look at in the last 20 years, someone like Brighton's a good example. Even Wolves have been very up and down over the last 20 years. They're now Premier League mainstays. And to take that next jump now from where you are to sort of like maybe like a Tottenham level, where you're kind of in and out of the Champions League, not really winning much, but you know,
you're there or
that gap is really hard. And then that jump is really hard. And then the next jump is even harder. To go from Tottenham to City or whatever is almost impossible. But it should be almost impossible. It shouldn't. I'm not saying you want to see Bayern Munich win the league 11 years in a row. That's not fun either. But like, you should have to run your club really well, make good transfers, use the money you have properly, bring in new fans, do social media, do this. It should be a difficult task.
Because Everton's obviously the Everton fans complaining is a bit of a strange one, because they've just notoriously been absolutely awful though in a transfer window. For the past 10 to 15 years, they've had a number of poor signings, pretty much yearly. So they've kind of found themselves in financial trouble, but a lot of it's been their ownership and their own doing.
It's a weird, weird sort of club, Everton, as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of change, like managers seem to change quite a lot.
Often.
And it's just there's no stability really with the Evertons.
Daniel Berry says, why should it almost be impossible? That's horrible. Because the reason it should be really difficult to go from being a team that doesn't win a lot to a team that wins a lot is because you look at the number of human beings who want to be professional footballers. It is billions across the world. Only the highest, best, most talented 1 or 2% get into academies, let alone anywhere after that. Then it's 2 or 3% of those get into the first team. Then it's 2 or 3% of those become world-class players. The odds of being a top player, a top team in football, are so minuscule that it shouldn't be the case that all you have to do is have a rich owner and your odds go from this, you know, so very difficult to do it to like 35% chance you're going to win the league. That seems to be a way that undercuts every other bit of how difficult sport is. So all of a sudden you're just doing it, you've just won. Like, then it becomes not who's got the best academy, who's got the best scouts, who's got the best, sort of transfer policy, who's got the best director of football, and they scout people well and they've got a good business and it doesn't become about that. It just becomes who's got the most money.
Yeah,
and then that's its own thing. That's not even sport.
No, but a lot of the things you just mentioned though in transfer policy and scouting and it's that
comes with money.
That would be very important though in what you talk. Those things would still matter.
You still have it, of course it still matters. But what I mean
because if you could spend a lot of money, I feel like there's even more like scrutiny on your transfer policy and your scouting. I think in a way, I see a world where there can be some sort of like compromise in middle ground in it. Because I think the way that it's currently set up is, I don't think anyone outside of the current big clubs are going to be able to really win the Premier League or win things. You've seen that in other leagues as well. And I think that's what people are getting a hump about. Yeah. But also, I don't fully believe in the shortcut route as well, and that you broke down. I was fully in agreement with you.
Yeah.
And I think, is there just some way in the middle where it's like everyone is only allowed to spend a certain amount, maybe just set a cap for everyone to spend or whatever? Because I feel like it just probably irks some football fans the wrong way. That, for example, Bayern Munich have this thing, obviously have this monopoly over the Bundesliga where all the best players for the teams further down, like the Dortmund, Stuttgart, have great seasons, and Dortmund or Bayern just buy them. And it's like, how's anyone going to ever compete with them, really?
I think that tweaks need to be made, definitely. I don't think that the way it is now is perfect, and you know, if you're Wolfsburg, you're never going to win anything and fuck you for trying. I don't think that. And I think that you look around Europe in the last 15 years, it seems like leagues have got more one-sided, not less. City win everything in the Premier League, Bayern win everything in Germany, PSG win everything in France. Italy's the only league where it's actually a bit exciting.
Yeah.
You know what? But people may argue that City winning four titles in a row and being as successful have been because they were able to fast track with the money that they got, and to be fair, becoming quite well run. Yeah. Which is kind of contradictory to some of the statements you've said, because they've actually run the club really well. Some parts dodgily, allegedly, but it's almost like, wouldn't PSR and FFP being softened in a way for the lesser clubs almost help more teams catch up to Manchester City?
Well, it would.
Do you know what I mean?
But look at what happens when there's no FFP. Man City is what happens. Their initial burst of money that got them from being taken over to winning the Premier League happened without FFP's existence. So that gap that they closed, Chelsea's another one.
Still some
Chelsea.
There were some limits, but FFP didn't exist when City first got taken over. FFP didn't exist when Chelsea went from being a team that was in and around Europa spots, UEFA Cup spots-ish, to the best team in England in 3 years. FFP didn't happen. So what you would have is teams like Newcastle with billionaire owners. 3 years later, they've won the league. All of a sudden, have gone from nowhere to winning the league. Then basically it just becomes the toss of a coin. Pick a card, any card. Which is the team that will win the league in 3 years because they've got new owners? Yeah. What's that? Surely there should be progress in building. And Tolkien here says FFP is there so owners can't wreck a club like Leeds, borrowing in the hope of success, paying it off, then leaving the club on the verge of bankruptcy. Football clubs are community assets. And I think part of what you're saying there could be said like, it's not a worry for owners like, who City have got or who Newcastle have got. But on the other hand, I think
lower clubs,
football clubs are community assets. They're not just
they mean a lot to a lot of people, don't they? Yeah.
But
like a play toy.
Yeah,
it feels like that with the Todd Boehly and Chelsea. It feels like a little bit of a play thing.
Most of your points are true, but I also agree with Ronnie, when you've got the finances, you get the best stuff, and then it's longevity. Then it's everything's put in place and a plan in place for that then to go on for so many years.
Yeah.
An initial investment gets you there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas with us, obviously talking about United, we've not had that. In terms of like the investment and the owners and stuff like that, they're milking it. They've got no one pumping it in to then get the best sort of stuff.
But we've still managed to spend a lot of money because we earn a lot of money because we've won so much. And I just think for me it would be it negates a large part of what sport and what football in particular is. That the fact that you were good for 70 years has been wiped out by the fact that someone's just been bought by a trillionaire. That to me isn't the point of football. And maybe we should find ways so we have more ups and downs and more teams having possible chances of success. I get it. I think we should. I don't just want even just United, as much as I'd love it. I appreciate if we won the league 10 years in a row, it's not good for the Premier League. But I don't think that you just get a new trillionaire owner and you go from being the 17th best team in the Premier League to winning it 3 years later. That to me, what's the point in that? That isn't even sport. Anyway, we've been talking about this for too long. We've got a few super chats. I want to talk about Ruud Van Nistelrooy as well. Chronic Maths Debater, I got it right, says, in RH's rooms our passions blaze, leather seats, linen sheets, velvish plush amaze, marble whispers, gilded lamps, love entwines us in the Lux maze. Is that what it's like in your house?
Up the RH, yeah.
Right up
Very nice, that. Thank you.
It's lovely, that. Edward Bamber says, let's be honest, plain and simple, it's cheating. I think we're talking about the transfers there. Chris Christodoulou says, it's basically financial doping and putting me off. Yeah, it does put me off a little bit, to be honest. I do just think, I don't want small teams to be crushed, but also, come on, let's at least pretend that we're trying to be, do things properly. Moving on. Manchester United look to be bringing in, it looks like we're very close to bringing in Ruud Van Nistelrooy as a new coach at Manchester United. We don't know what the role exactly will be, whether it'll be assistant manager, whether it'll be, let's say, striker coach like we've seen Benny McCarthy do, whether it'll be head, it's not head coach because obviously that's Ten Hag's role, but sort of the leader of his side coaches. We don't know what it's going to be. But according to Fabrizio Romano, it says that in recent hours things have progressed and are moving very quickly. RH, I'll start with you. What do you make of this? Ruud Van Nistelrooy, I'll go through his CV in a minute, but someone who's already a pretty accomplished manager, who's won the Dutch Cup at PSV. Sort of a step back for him in terms of title, at least, but obviously a much bigger club.
In terms of obviously Ruud coming in, I think, from a player point of view, he was absolutely fantastic player, like a legend for the football club. But I think on a personal development side for him, if he did come in as, say, a striker coach or a position-related sort of coach, it would be a bit of a step back. Now, is Ten Hag really going to upset the dynamic of bringing in him as an assistant manager, and then where does it leave the other assistant manager? Where does he go? Does he step down, or is he another role? So I think the dynamic changes, but I think it would be great for the fans. I think it would give the fans a bit of a lift, and also we was talking about as well, if things don't work out at the start of the season and changes do need to be made, it might be a fantastic option for an interim.
Yeah, well, Daniel Berry makes that point before I get to Ronaldo. He says, Ruud should take the United job. He's only a few bad results away from being number one. Before we get to that, which I think is possible, what do you make of this news just generally?
I find it interesting because for being a successful coach that he was, especially in his tenure at PSV, I know why he left. He had a bit of a disagreement with the board and how he was kind of backed. But he's shown a lot of qualities when he was there. Obviously, he finished second in the Eredivisie. He's really, really good with the youth. So if he meshes really well with the way that Ineos want to go. I find it mad that he'll accept going from being a head coach to being an assistant coach. The guy he's never really worked with before in Erik Ten Hag. I'm not sure how Ineos are going to marry that together as good as it sounds. And as for Ten Hag just doesn't seem like the type of guy that would be well on board with that either. Do you know what I mean? With him being so, obviously he's quite stoic. He seems to wants his own things very much his way.
Well, the rumours were that he was really defending Mitchell van der Gaag when there were some suggestions that Ineos wanted to bring in almost like another manager. I think it was the rumour before. It was what's his name at Bournemouth? Oh, he was at Bournemouth and now he's gone to Wolves. What's his name? The manager?
Gary
O'Neill.
Oh, Gary O'Neill.
Gary O'Neill. Yeah. There was some rumours that United wanted Gary O'Neill to be like his assistant, almost like two head coaches working together. And I think Ten Hag supposedly really pushed back on that.
This is kind of that,
but they've gone. But he's Dutch. So
I know. I don't know. And also
like Ten Hag go, oh, go on. Then as long as he's Dutch.
And Ten Hag can't be Steve because that's going to be hovering over him, pretty much the whole season, of the fact that he's got a really promising young head coach.
Yeah,
that's obviously got the love of United fans. He knows the club. He's a club legend. Knowing that there's always a possibility that if the pressure starts to mount, Ineos have a very easy segue from just giving your job to the guy that they've said to work alongside you in Van der Sar, I almost said Van der Sar, but Van Nistelrooy. So I think it's an interesting one. It can be exciting because obviously he's a good gaffer, and I remember seeing his coach's voice thing where he broke down how he played against Ajax.
With Jared Branthwaite in the squad.
Branthwaite was very eye-opening. I don't know. Just see if they might butt heads, but it does seem like, because how Ineos did treat Ten Hag over the course of the past few months, and it's come out that they pretty much did decide to sack him and then retracted it. Obviously not the biggest fan of him. It just feels like a setup to me. If I was Ten Hag, I'd think it was a setup.
Don't worry about him being there. He's here to help. He's not gonna.
When the pressure starts, he'll end up getting your job, bud. You know what I mean? I
think there's a possibility, but also in the short term, hopefully he can help. Hopefully he's got the love of the fans for sure, which I think Ten Hag could, at times lacked last season. Van Nistelrooy's got that. He's a very good coach, or seems to be a very good coach from what he's done at PSV, and maybe he is an option if Ten Hag was to go. I think that having those things in place maybe isn't the worst idea. But if you're Ten Hag, you're thinking
even what you just said there, as in it could be a good thing, but for Ten Hag, they're the bad things. Because if it starts going wrong, well, Ruud's next to him. Why don't they sack him and get him in? You know what I mean? It's just mad one.
And just before we go,
and if they clash though as well.
Yeah.
Rooney's waistcoat says Ruud Van Nistelrooy is the best finisher in Premier League history. It would be great to have him involved. Just as a player, he is the best finisher I've ever seen. I know people say Omri's a better player and dribbling and his passing ability and stuff, and maybe that's right. in front of goal, he's the best finisher I've ever seen in my life.
In box,
like,
in the
certainly
boxes,
he's
And
unbelievable
instinct.
finisher. If you haven't seen him, if you're a bit too young or you didn't watch, check out some highlights. Even just at Real Madrid as well, unreal striker.
Might be able to help Hoyland as well.
Yeah, exactly.
very good
And quickly, Wally of the week every week. Who's been an absolute Wally this week? It's got to be the Scotland national team, hasn't it? Surely. Like, I mean, come on. I know they're not a great team, but like, what was it, going into like the 85th minute, they'd had no shots on target in that game yesterday that they had to win. I know they lost and they were a little bit unlucky, but I just think, come on guys, surely you can get a cross or get hit one from long or something. It just felt like they had this massive game that they needed to win and they just didn't do anything, did they?
Hopefully Southgate's not the Wally of the week.
Yeah,
fingers crossed.
Tomorrow with the game. Yeah.
I would have probably given him. I'll give Gareth Southgate. Give myself.
Yourself?
Oh, yourself.
Blacking out last night.
You blacked out. I'm glad you've turned up, to be honest.
Do you know what I mean?
Where were you? Talk us, obviously you don't tell us any details, but where were you? On a night out or something?
Yeah, it was my boys' annual barbecue party yesterday before work, and I don't have any recollection of anything after 9 p.m. at all.
Good night, mate.
Yeah, you're definitely the one.
I had work this morning. I woke up in obviously I saw I was on the couch, and then for some reason I don't know how I got there, but I ended up in his spare room fully clothed, and I woke up this morning at 7:30, and I almost literally thought it was like a fever dream. I had no idea what was happening. Well, and I'm just glad I made it, to be honest with you.
You say fully clothed in there, but the alternative would have been a lot worse, wouldn't it? If you woke up fully naked, then there's a lot more questions to answer. Then at least fully clothed, you sort of think, I'm in the state I was when I last remember where I was.
See,
if you woke up naked, or, on a central reservation on a roundabout or something, then that's who's your one of the week?
I don't know. I don't know whether we're talking about. No, listen, the RH's got to be ruthless sometimes. I think. Southgate's doing me head in at the minute.
Is he?
Yeah, it's just they're tough to watch, aren't they? They're tough to watch.
The Trent in midfield thing. Weird,
I just feel like he's just trying to fit him in somewhere, and it's just even the style. Like, they've got the great attacking players, and they're just so negative with the play. It's just, if I had that team, I'm telling you, I need to get out there, mate. Fancy it, me and you get out there. I'll be gaffer, you be your assistant. We'll win the Euros from, mate.
We'll get him.
Howson's not in, mate. Howson out.
I think
me and Ronnie in.
I think me and you would be better than us.
Yeah, they're just too negative, mate.
We'll get them playing.
Yeah, we'll get them playing. We'll get them working. But yeah, sorry.
Let's see how they get through tomorrow. I'm sure they will. If they went out 4 points, they'd be very unlucky, wouldn't they? Right, that's going to be all from us. Make sure you check out Manscaped. Again, the link is in the description. Use the code DEVILS20. You get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Thank you, Ronaldo. Always good to have you on RH as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Up the RH. Appreciate it.
We'll see you in a bit.